I'm Angela Fairhurst, founder of Jerry Gadgets, a revolutionary solution for dementia care. Inspired by my personal journey caring for my mother with dementia, I developed patented sensory tools that engage loved ones, reduce anxiety, and create joyful moments without medication, providing much-needed relief for caregivers. Jerry Gadgets currently come in 3 silicone buckets with activities like flower arranging, shape sorting, and tactile fidgets, with more in development. Each Jerry Gadget is designed to stimulate the senses, fostering connection and communication, even at advanced stages of cognitive decline. Non-toxic, built to last, and dishwasher safe, Jerry Gadgets transform caregiving by promoting engagement, improving quality of life, and offering caregivers a respite from constant supervision. Discover how our innovative products can bring joy and meaningful interaction to your loved ones with dementia while easing the caregiver's burden. Visit jerrygadgets.com to learn more and start making every moment count.
For a limited time, you can get 20% off your next order of Jerry Gadgets by going to www.ssww.com Jerry Gadgets for Dementia and enter the special Love Conquers All's coupon code LCA20. Get 20% off Jerry Gadgets today.
When the world has got you down.
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hello, I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Don Priest, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susan.
Donald, how are you today?
I'm, it's well, this is actually a little later than we normally do a show, which I kind of like. I like that not getting up in the morning thing. Yeah, it's great. I mean, we could do it at, no. Or a midday person either. And night makes me tired. So, you know.
Pretty much you're tired all the time.
Yeah, but pretty much.
It's a big problem, folks.
It is.
Feel me on this. I'm never watch a movie with John because this is what you'll see.
It's the dog. I keep telling you, our dog. It's a little Yorkie.
We're roommates, by the way. John and I are roommates.
Yeah.
Everybody, if you didn't know.
The dog tucks itself into your hip and literally sends magical sleep vibes into your body that you cannot overcome. Yeah. You cannot overcome them. So
dogs get blamed for everything, don't they? We just use them for everything.
Absolutely.
Dogs,
it's like, who broke this dish? Who broke the dish?
Alfie.
Yeah, dog did it. Yeah. So what's happening?
Well, newsletters are so time consuming. Can I complain for a second?
Do I have a choice? Yeah.
No, you don't have a choice. But if anybody out there listening has any advice on how to streamline this, maybe I should use AI, but then I feel like I'm cheating. You know,
you are.
I don't know. I feel like it's not my voice because I haven't really tried it yet for that. But I always know I need to do a newsletter because I want everyone to be up to date. Our guest that we have today is very good on that. She's super good on newsletters. Everybody's better than me on newsletters. I'd rather just talk. But I'm a writer.
Except for me. Yeah, I'm not. I would be terrible at that. So
yeah, you're worse than me. So no, it's just that to me, I get too attached to making them perfect. So I'm into the production of it all. And then I realized 3 hours just went by for a 1-page thing, right? And then also the technology is really clunky. I'm using MailChimp. Sorry, MailChimp, but it's not very intuitive. Things don't make them. Honestly, I can't figure out why things don't work the same. I just Can you help me? I just uploaded.
Well, it was obviously created by a monkey. I mean, so how good do you think it's going to be? It's right in the name.
It's in the name. It's a male. You're right. What was I thinking? But why
I don't know. You should maybe use
I...
male smart guy or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Instead of
male Tim. Yeah. Okay, that's done. I'm done with that. Okay, got it. All right.
Feel better?
I feel much better now. Yeah.
Good.
I was feeling really dumb. Like every time I upload new subscribers from like a mailing list that I have, or it's not a mailing list, I don't buy lists, it's just people that I've aggregated. And then I do it, and then it's like, then I go, oh, there's nothing there. It says no one subscribed. But I say that they're subscribed. So someone please help me with this. I'm having issues, and I shouldn't have to deal with
Maybe somebody in tech support
agree?
is listening right now. Who knows? Yeah, I do. I know, and I'm tired of hearing about it. So, yeah, let's fix that.
All right, I put it out there in the ether. Let's talk about the important things now. Let's talk about our
Okay,
our
what are
guests
those?
that we have. Well,
I
our
would love
guests
to.
today. Yeah, we're sort of branching out in our Alzheimer's conversation, and I like it.
Definitely.
I hope the people listening like it, because I think it's important. There's a lot of
I do too.
podcasts now. When we started, there wasn't. 4 years ago, there was not a lot, and there are a lot now. So you have a lot of choices. But I think you should just stick with me and Dawn and our next guest. She has a podcast too. Other than that,
that's it.
I support all my.
Except unless our next guest has a podcast, then
I think we should bring. Everyone should bring their own, flavor. Otherwise, there's just a lot of the same. But then again, that's okay too. I'm totally contradicting myself because, maybe you like the way someone else says it better. You like a more serious person. I'd rather bring it to you in a more fun way, a little lighter way, because it's such a heavy
breezy,
topic.
if you will. Yeah.
Breezy. You're breezy. Anyway, so without further ado, go, Dawn. Do your job.
I'll do that. Lizette CLOETE is a veteran occupational therapist, pastor's wife, and daughter of two parents with cognitive loss. With over 30 years of experience as an occupational therapist turned dementia coach and 5 years of being a daughter of dementia, she has become a sought-after speaker on dementia-related topics both nationally and internationally. Her podcast, Christian Dementia Caregiving, is a key resource for connecting and sharing her valuable insights. In 2023, Lizette was awarded a grant to create an online education and coaching community for family care partners. She is truly a fount of information and support for our caregiving community, and we are delighted to have her with us today. So without further ado, let's say hello to Lizette CLOETE. Hello, Lizette.
Thank you so much. You did such a good job on the name. I'm always proud of people when they attempt it and then they crush it. It's wonderful.
I feel... Yes. Yes, my day is made.
My day is made. I love this woman. She's from South Africa. South Africa. There's my only thing I can do. And Shem, right?
Shame.
Yeah. And we got to talk. I got to talk on Lizette's podcast, and we had such a great conversation. And she brought up this topic that we're going to talk about today, which is eloping, which is not getting married in Vegas. This is a whole nother topic, right? And I said, that's such a great conversation because my mother eloped and many people I've talked to have eloped. And I wanted Lizette to talk about this because she has put a lot of attention and focus onto this matter that I think most of us have dealt with that with somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's. And I think, so thank you for coming on to have this conversation.
You're welcome. Do you remember the story I told you that precipitated the conversation about elopement?
I want you to remind me, and my readers here. I'm a readers. You guys aren't reading.
Readers.
What's wrong with you?
I know it works that way, right?
Yeah.
So when we were conversing, I don't believe it was when we were recording, but when we were talking, I mentioned one of my very, very first jobs when my husband and I moved to the United States. in 1993. This would have been January of 1994. I had a terrible, terrible experience going to work one day. And so you've got to think about it. This is 1994. It's pre-cell phone. Life was, very vastly different. I was young and dumb. I was 23 years old as a brand spanking new occupational therapist, working at a skilled nursing facility in Fort Wayne, Indiana in January. My husband and I had one car, which meant he drove me to work in the morning. I'd go to work at 7 a.m. and he would pick me up after work in the afternoon at 3:30. And so I want people to picture in their mind, it's cold, it's winter, it's a nursing facility. You can drive in the United States by a nursing facility or a funeral home and know it's a nursing facility or a funeral home. They kind of all look similar. And he pulled up the car and I got out, and the very first thing I saw was a wheelchair outside the building. But like I said, I was young and dumb. At that point, to me, a wheelchair just meant a wheelchair. Now, 30 years later, a wheelchair means where's the person in the wheelchair? There's a wheelchair. But at that time, I was very, very ignorant and naive, and I didn't think, oh, there's a wheelchair outside. I just thought, there's a wheelchair outside, it needs to go in. And I distinctly remember going up to the wheelchair and breaking it out of the ice, right? So it's January in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and starting to go in, and my husband reversed the car out, and the beams of the car alighted on the person who had been in the wheelchair. And so my immediate response was to run inside as quickly as I could, get the staff, come back outside, because this is a person who is outside and it's January and it's cold. But I'll never forget what she looked like, because she was obviously an older female person who had gotten out of a nursing home in the middle of the night, and she died outside that nursing home. And it is called elopement, right? In a facility, the person elopes from the facility. The other word that people know more commonly here is now, we talk about people wandering, right? They wander away. It's the same concept, but the formal word for it is elopement. They've eloped. They didn't have permission to leave the building. But the reality of the matter is that never should have happened. Like in a facility, it never should have happened. She was at the far end of the facility and had to go through several double doors before she even got out of the building. They're supposed to check on residents overnight. There should be no reason why. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. They hadn't even started looking for her before I got to work. Now, fast forward, 31 years later, I would not have run in. I would have gone in and called 911, and I would have started steps to have it be really looked at what occurred. But hindsight's 20/20. As we get older, we learn more and we know better what to do. But I will never, ever, ever forget that patient. And that was, she was living there and she had dementia. Right. And it's something I don't think we talk about enough in the healthcare space or even in Alzheimer's care, that a person can elope from home. And we don't think about that.
Right. No, it's, first of all, what a horrible experience, obviously, for the woman and you as a young, person.
And her family.
Her family, all of that. And again, I'm going to go back to the reason why we're doing No Country for Old People, our documentary, because those things, like you said, should never happen. And if these facilities weren't understaffed, and were better, and had people that were better trained because they were staffed properly and therefore, of course, paid properly, and therefore they were more invested in their job, those would be the exception to the rule, but they're not, because it happens all the time. I mean, my mother was found 3 miles away from the facility that where she was in memory care, and it's supposed to be locked. And then there's, and then people that we've interviewed, even for the documentary, this lovely family, the Stewarts, their mother was found dead outside. Nobody knew why. She was in a memory care lockdown situation. There was no way to get out. And yet they know that she died from falling out of somewhere because there was no way for her to get down without anyone seeing her. So no one was watching. And the trauma that is put on this family, and this again, this family is just one of millions of things, where things have happened where they shouldn't have happened. It's it's horrifying, and these memories don't leave you; they stay forever.
No,
they stay forever, and they change you forever.
I absolutely agree. They change you forever. It changed me as a human, but it also changed me as a therapist.
Mm-hmm. In a good way, or as a therapist?
In a very good way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm way more assertive with people related to safety than I might have been if I didn't have that experience.
Right.
I'm a lot more direct. I'm pretty direct. South Africans are direct.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Right. So that's just a fact. That's never going to change. However, in the same vein, I will tell people things that they don't want to hear because it's truly a safety concern for the person. I'll never forget recently, within the last few years, I was still working in home health, and I had a wonderful couple that had been married they weren't even super old. She was 14 when they got married. And there was a backstory as to why she was as young as she was. But they'd been married like 65 years. They were in their late 70s, early 80s. And brother-in-law, I don't know if you have this much in California, but where I live in the country, people have mom and, somebody lives there, and then there's a sibling or grandkids, and it's like this mushroom of a whole community of families that are all on the same property or within spitting distance of one another. And she had severe Alzheimer's, and he would allow her to walk to the brother's house, which was right next door. And I told them immediately, the very first time I met them, I'm like, that's not a safe situation for her. And he's like, no, she's been doing it forever. I'm like, it's not a safe situation because she's not the person she used to be. And she can get turned around. She can decide in her mind that she's going somewhere else and take off, and you're never going to find her again. Or, it's summer in South Carolina. She falls in a ditch and she's laying out there and get heat stroke and all these other things. But people who are taking care of somebody with dementia at home do not necessarily think that they're going to walk away from home. But the statistics actually show that 80% of all people living with dementia will wander from home at least once. At least once.
And aren't they usually trying to find their home? Aren't they trying to walk, or do they know where are they going? Are they trying to find where they were, or we don't know that?
I don't think there's really a way to know. I think there can be so many different reasons. A person can get something in their head, and they may decide it's 5 o'clock, it's dusk, it's time to go home from work. Right. They may in their mind be thinking they're at work and it's time to leave and to go home. Or they may truly start out thinking, I'm going to my brother-in-law's house across the yard, and take off, and halfway there forget what they were doing, turn around and get turned around and go off in a different direction. I think it's very difficult to truly know or understand what they are thinking. But the reality of the matter is, just because somebody hasn't done it doesn't mean that they're not going to do it. Recently, I had a blessing. I had an opportunity to be a care support person on a dementia-supported cruise. And there was a gentleman who was on that cruise who never wandered away from home. But on the cruise, he wandered away 3 times. 3 times on a cruise.
Right.
Once in the hotel in Fort Lauderdale, which was pretty darn scary. Once when we were on the cruise itself, and once the last day. And, you know, we had strategies, we had things that we were implementing to keep him safe. But the reality is, you know, it happens, and it happens more frequently than what we think. And nobody's really talking about it all that much, because we don't, you know, how can you research, oh, mom walked away from her home and we found her 2 blocks away and brought her home? Nobody's tracking that data for people at home. We are only aware of the bad consequences of somebody not being found. But how many people are doing it that are being found, but we just really don't know?
Right. I mean, I think that is technology that I've talked to people in the industry, in our industry and community, that are creating or have already certain kinds of tracking devices that you can even like your Apple Watch. You know, there's ways to be able to find where people are. But that said, I was trying to look it up while you were talking. Can't think of his name right now. Is it Carl Mooney? Kyle?
Not Kyle. No. Kyle Mooney's an actor.
It's
yeah.
I can't think of his name. But there was a documentary based on this man's wife that she was a brilliant aero engineer, and he also is an engineer, and she had Alzheimer's, and they were at the Modern Museum here in Los Angeles, and she had early onset Alzheimer's, and she was still living at home. She went to the restroom, and he was waiting outside for his wife, and she was in there for a while, so he thought he'd just dash into the bathroom and use it. He came back out, and she wasn't coming out. She was gone. And they didn't find her until a year later, and it wasn't good news. It wasn't good news, no. And so since then, they had come up with tracking bracelets. I know that in Los Angeles, and he's been, you know, very, very active in the Alzheimer's Los Angeles community. And you know, it's things like that bring on change anyway. But, you know,
For sure.
And here's a very brilliant man, and, you know, you would think like he was very conscientious, but it took a second for her to be gone, and gone that fast. Because there was even, like, if you watch the documentary, and I'll put it in the show notes, guys, because I can't think of the name of it. It's like, Where's Linda? Or Have You Seen Linda? Something like that. But they had, like, you know, cameras that are there on the streets, but only they could see her going down the street. And there's a certain thing that happens with Alzheimer's where one of the experts was saying when they're walking and they're lost, they'll continue to go a certain way. It's like left or left. Do you know anything about that?
I just know that they'll continue to go.
Yeah.
They literally will not stop. They will not ask for help. They will not. They will just keep walking until they
collapse.
Until they stop, fall into a ditch, whatever. You know, and you bring up the tracking devices. Now, I'm going to use the gentleman on the cruise as an example, because I was racking my brain. Like, when this happened, I'm like, the first time, he didn't have on shoes. He was in his pajamas and just took out. He wears glasses, didn't put his glasses on. They make trackers for glasses. They make trackers for shoes. They make trackers for belts, right? They make AirTag trackers. The trackers you can find trackers for almost anything. The second time he left, he never wears a belt. He takes them off. He takes off bracelets. Same. He takes off watches. Yeah. He takes off everything.
Yeah.
And so I literally was racking my brain because there was nothing that we could attach to him that he wasn't going to take off.
Yeah, you'd almost have to do a chip. You'd almost have to do like a chip like they do with,
children.
Exactly. And I hate Like, I hate that was my thought, but because I don't want anybody to chip me.
I know.
Right? I mean, there's a conversation, there's a separate conversation about chipping a person, but at the same time, we chip our animals.
Yep.
To know where they are, right?
Right.
And to be able to find them again.
It's not a horrible thing. It's really not a terrible thing. I don't think it is, but for a person who literally will not keep something on their body, how do you
Agreed.
find them again?
Right. My mother wouldn't.
Yeah.
My mother, I was thinking, like, if I could take one of her bracelets that she knew, that because she loved her jewelry, if I could take something that she was familiar with and have something put into that thing that she was familiar with, because otherwise, for sure, she would have said, "What is this stuff? Get this off of me!" Yeah, I don't want this stuff. This is mine. This isn't me. Yeah, she would not have.
God forbid, God forbid somebody could take a bracelet from her. I mean, that once you're out in the world, you don't know. That's
true too.
That
That's
danger.
True too.
So, by the way, it's Kirk Moody.
Moody, not Moody.
Moody. Yeah,
Okay,
it's Kirk
you.
Moody.
Did you see his movie? So we can't keep people in suspense.
I'll look it up.
I think it's called Weird. Yeah, look it up. So I was going to mention this another anecdote, terrible anecdote. When I was first starting the documentary, and I went to one of my colleagues who's a director, and I knew that her mom had passed away already, but had been at the same facility my mom was at before my mom. And I said, wondered if I asked her, did she want to be a part of this project? And she was super busy at the time and actually didn't really have the heart to do it, something which is quite common. Most people, once it's over, they don't want to look back, because it's sometimes when it's really hard, you don't want to look back. So, but she did share the story with me, and this didn't happen at a nursing home. It happened at a very, very high-end assisted living in Los Angeles. And every Sunday, her mom had Alzheimer's. Every Sunday, so she lived, like, not independently, but she had her own little place within, like a little tiny, like, of her own apartment. And it was the beginning of her diagnosis. So every Sunday they had a standing date to have dinner with the family. They would go and pick her up. And this one week, she would hear from her mom, like, every day, but she didn't hear from her for the last, like, Friday and Saturday. And she was she was working. My friend was working as a director, so she was, like, with her long hours. So she didn't think, oh, well, mom has probably got busy. Maybe she's doing some social whatever. And Sunday came around, and they went to pick her up. And when they got to her door, there was all these newspapers piled up at the front of the door, a couple days worth of newspapers. And when she went in, her mom was lying naked on the ground in her own excrement, and she wasn't dead. She didn't die, but it was clear that she had been late because she couldn't get back up. That she had been laying there for at least over 24 hours. Nobody checked on her. Mm-hmm. She didn't come to dinner. Nobody checked on her. And I said to her, "What did you do?" She said, "Well, we were devastated. We went, talked to the administration." She said, "But Susie, there was no place else to take her. This was the best place." Mm-hmm. And that's what's so scary, and that, so I say that as a cautionary tale because it's not exactly eloping, but the point is that people aren't watching your loved one. So when you assume they are, you can't do that because you just can't, unfortunately. So you need to check in if you can't be there every day, and that, of course, that's of course not. You can't. At least check in. And if you can't get a hold of them, have somebody go over to their room and assure you that they're okay, because those are devastating consequences. If there can be.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. But I'm very grateful. Where Dawn and I were talking before we started the podcast about how far things are a lot further along than that experience I had 31 years ago. Then, and 31 years from now, things are going to be a lot further along than what they are now. But we do live in an age where technology, I really believe, can solve a lot of the distant supervision type of situations related to, specifically in a facility or in somebody's home, related to ensuring some eyes on or some other remote monitoring techniques to be able to see, number one, that somebody is at home, number two, that behavior is normal, number three, that they haven't walked out of the building. And so I'm extremely grateful for that opportunity and for those opportunities to come about now, because it does absolutely radically change your ability as a caregiver to have extra eyes on a person.
Agreed.
Without being there.
Agreed.
But we face a challenge also as far as camera, like especially if it's a facility, because some facilities will say, "Oh no, you're not putting a camera in this." They don't want cameras.
I think she's
in
talking
the
about
rooms.
other technology.
Well, you're talking about at home, yeah. But
No,
I'm
also
talking about technology that is not camera based.
Right.
Okay, so anything, yeah.
You know what it brings to mind to me, Lizette? We're watching this series called Sunny, which is in the future, and it's what's her name, Dawn? The woman.
Oh, Rashida Jones.
Rashida Jones. And it's where, everybody has these robots that are their assistants, basically. And that's what I think of when you say that to me, because it's like a human companion. And
well, these are a little different though. This technology, they use motion sensors and humidity sensors and things like that you can embed in specific geographic areas. So, for example, in the fridge, if you have somebody and you want to make sure that they're opening the fridge, right? And so it's connected to your cell phone. But in a facility-based place, you can put those sensors on beds to know if somebody's in the bed, or on the door to know whether the door has been opened or closed. Then you can track staff coming in. There are ways to track people without cameras, and so that's exciting technology from a facility-based care. Because yes, I agree, Dawn, facilities do not want you to have cameras in there because they don't want you to see what's happening.
That's right.
And there is ways to now use other type of technology that can help track behavior, but not actually show the person. So, inside the apartment, the example that you were using related to your friend whose mom in the assisted living facility, they now make lamps for like a lamp, just a regular lamp, that have velocity monitors and that can see whether somebody's fallen in the room.
Oh wow,
it's awesome.
So there is technology. There's technology coming out that I truly believe can help be an invisible caregiver to people with dementia at home, keep them at home a little bit longer, afford family members of people who by necessity or whatever reason do need to be in a facility, because some people really are difficult if you're alone to manage because of behavior. But there are other ways that we can help monitor and supervise without being there by using technology.
But those could also be used in facilities, meaning if that lamp was in everyone's room, then the staff knows if something happened. It's not, it's a simple way that they don't, if they are understaffed and they don't have the time for someone to come in and check in on them, that at least there's some sort of notification something has happened. And that could help, even though until we solve our staffing issues, which is what we're trying to do. And
even if the facility doesn't want to provide a lamp like that, a family member, a family caregiver could certainly get a lamp, put it in the room, have the notification come to them, and be all, bat out of hell if something happens, and contact the facility.
Yeah. if someone will answer
so
the phone when you call.
Or call 911.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because my
Right?
mom's in assisted living, and she has both from the facility. They have where she can call them. Of course, if you're not conscious, you can't do that. But she also has a pendant that if they'll know if something happens, it's to an outside service, and they'll know if she's fallen or something. So, there is that technology, but then you're still relying on them wearing it, and that's the challenge.
And sometimes they won't wear it.
Right.
Like my mother.
Right.
Yep. So, right. By the way, Where is Nancy is the documentary.
That's it.
Where is Nancy?
Yeah.
And it does definitely cover this topic. And she eloped from a public place.
Right.
Which.
So back to my cruise example. Right after the cruise, maybe a couple months after the cruise, I need to go look this up. I keep meaning to go look this up. There was a husband and a wife combination. Now, on the cruise that I went, we were one staff member to 3 people, and not 3 people with dementia, 3 people. So there were people with dementia and their family members. We were almost one-on-one with the people living with dementia. So we had like 9 or 10 staff members, and there were 9 or 10 people with dementia on the cruise. We were a group of over 31 people, but we were almost able to be one-on-one with the people living with dementia. But this was a husband and a wife combination who had gone on a cruise by themselves in Mexico. And did you guys hear this story? It's been within the last couple of months. And they came off of the ship, and when they got through the port on the dock or wherever, both of them went into the restroom. And he was newly diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. And when she came out, he had come out before her and took off in Mexico. And they, at the time that I stopped looking it up, it had been several days and they hadn't found him. So, and she had a tracking device. She did have some sort of a tracking device, but it was attached to her cell phone and had to be within a certain radius of her phone. So the moment he left that radius, it's gone.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about some high-tech stuff. Here's a low-tech strategy for families at home.
Okay.
A police officer taught us, take a dry washcloth, not a wet one, a dry washcloth, and rub it on the person's neck. Get scent, get some of the oils on the body, put it in a plastic bag and put it in the freezer. And if the person does walk away from home, we have the ability using tracking dogs to take that person's, because then it's just their scent. And specifically from home, be able to try to track them.
Wow, that's a great tip.
That's I mean, because
right,
that's...
and even for the gentleman whose wife had wandered away from a situation like that, if they had a way of having her scent,
yes,
even if he had to go home and get it, they might have had an opportunity using tracking dogs to see if they could pick up her scent again. But of course, because we don't necessarily keep, dirty clothes and things in the house, we don't necessarily have that. But it is another way of being able to locate somebody if there is the opportunity to use canine dogs. But then it has to be an isolated scent.
Wow, that's an amazing tip. I wouldn't have thought of that. I mean, I wouldn't have known that they would do that. It's amazing.
We'll be right back.
I'm Peter, owner of Peter Fan Photography, and I want to talk to you about something important, preserving memories. Time moves quickly, and before we know it, those we love may no longer be with us. For the last few years, I've taken complimentary professional headshots of seniors in a local retirement home, helping families capture the essence and personality of their loved ones through beautiful photos. I've seen firsthand how meaningful these images can be. When I photographed my own parents, I realized how powerful it is to have these lasting memories. Photos that capture smiles, stories, and the unique spirit of the people we care about most. If your parents or loved ones are still with you, don't wait. These images can bring comfort and joy for years to come, whether it's for remembering silly moments or honoring family history. My message is simple. Get photos of your loved ones while you can. Hire a local photographer, use your camera, cell phone, whatever it takes. Just do it now. For more information, visit peterisfanphotography.com.
You know, I was talking to one of our other doctors who we interviewed for No Country for Old People, Al Power, who is a geriatrician, but he speaks all around the world and he's really focused on dementia. And, you know, and he talks about the locked door, you know, in facilities and how, you know, they, of course, he's a big fan of the greenhouse model, which is, you know, very much, you know, person-centered. It's very different than the facilities that are in use now. There are very few greenhouse models out there because the government doesn't subsidize it. But, you know, in their trials, they found that the facilities that they didn't lock doors, less people wanted to leave. And there is something about the dignity of a locked, you know, or the indignity of a locked door that makes people want to get out because they feel incarcerated. And I know my mother did. My mother was, you know, until I got her into a facility the whole facility was memory care. So there was not one just specific area. She was, and I took her out of the other place. She was so unhappy because she kept forgetting, like, why was it locked and why is she trapped in here and why, and they really, it really made her want to get out. And I, you know, and I think that that's something that, you know, that's just the philosophy and things that in the future that we need to think about when we think about people with, don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I remember here in South Carolina, once I went to an assisted living facility, memory care assisted living facility. And when I came into the building, the locked unit, I just stood there a minute and I'm like, you all have a lot of people try to get out? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I totally get it. You know, the way it was structured, they had like a big exit sign and the door was locked and it was very institutional and it was one of those push bars that you just exactly know what to do when you get up to it, even if there's nothing, you know, if you're really not even thinking well, you just have to push it and it doesn't open and then it makes an alarm. And they had people constantly trying to leave the facility. And you know, I do think that technology, like these remote sensors and things that I have explained to you, can be used in a locked unit and even greater in a community because there are ways of setting them up that they have barriers, like a boundary, and the person can have a geotag.
Right. And
then if they get beyond that boundary, you know that you need to be able to locate them. So there are, I think I 100% agree with you that over time locked units are going to be less. But at home, you know, there is a true, real concern at home for somebody walking away from home. They make slider locks for the top of the door that you can't, you know, a person with dementia won't look up or down. They'll just look kind of right in front of them. So they'll see the door handle. But you can put a slider lock on the top that you can open and close manually from both inside and outside, so the door isn't locked per se. You know, they can turn the handle, they just cannot open the door. You can put, you know, magnetic monitors on the door just so you can hear the door opening, so you have an early warning system. But I recently had I have a person that I work with in my coaching community, and his wife is an exit seeker. She tries to walk out of the house all the time. And one of the strategies that we used in their house was to, and this is what is also used sometimes successfully, just depending on the facility, is making the door not look like a door. And the way we did this in their house was I suggested to him to look and see if he could find a shower curtain that looked like a bookshelf. Because a bookshelf is something that's normal in our house. We're not bringing something in that doesn't look like the house. And he put the bookshelf up over the door. He'd already put deadbolts on so that he would have to use a key, like an actual key to open the door. But she would always go to the door and was literally breaking the handles
frustrated,
of the door
yeah,
trying to get out. Right. And so by just putting this shower curtain that looked like a bookshelf, it stopped that behavior in that specific spot, because she would see it and she would at least have somewhat of a recognition. Now this isn't a door.
Right.
And it looks like a bookshelf, and she'd turn around and walk away. Other things, and this is kind of funny because we were talking about AI earlier. AI can really be beneficial for certain things, but totally off base for other stuff. And I was playing around with AI the other day and talking about wandering behaviors, and it said, put the word stop on the door. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can put on the door of a place. Don't ever put for anybody listening, if you want somebody to not walk through a door, don't put the word stop on the door.
Right.
Because what do we do when we see a stop sign?
Right.
We stop.
And then we go.
But then what do we do?
And then we go.
And then
Right.
Yeah.
Don't put stop on the door. Put something like wrong way or employees only or out of order or something that is logical. People with dementia can still read up to a very late point in their journey and understand certain things, specifically very routine and familiar stuff, like a wrong way sign. Anything that we would be very familiar with to clue them or cue them to not try to go through that door. Danger, hazard.
Yeah. Do you think that is there any possibility of putting somebody with a room that doesn't feel like it has a door or a way out? Would that cause any type of negative anxiety?
I think, I'm kind of with Susie on this one. You put me in a room where I don't think I can get out, I'm going to freak out.
Right. That's what I was worrying. If they were in a room that said, wait, there is no door here, would that cause?
Right.
Would it create that?
I think it depends on how far advanced a person's dementia would be, whether they would actually notice it or not. Because at a certain point, I don't think a person would notice it at the very, very end stages.
I want to say, like with my mom when she lived with me that year, she was very active, and I say she was straddling the fence of like knowing she was losing her cognitive abilities and fighting it like hell, right? And so I think that at that stage and before is the hardest, because my mom would go, logically, if I look back at it, she would say, so how do I get out of here then? Where's the door? Where's the door to get out of here? She would be searching for the door if it said, don't go out this way. But I think you're right. Once my mom got past that stage, because she still could read, that would have sufficed. Right?
Yeah. There's this window, right?
Yes.
When everything is like a perfect storm. At the beginning stages, I don't teach people to reason with somebody who has a diagnosis of dementia, because I'm teaching them not that over time they're not going to be able to reason. But at the beginning, you can still reason through something and they can understand. And then the end section, when we get to that phase, it really doesn't matter. They're not going to be necessarily like your mom trying to leave as much. But that middle section when the person truly does, or a lot of people do have an awareness, something's not right. I'm not the way I always used to be. I think that's when it's the hardest, is like that very, very middle stage, when people truly, and at that stage oftentimes very mobile still.
Very mobile.
Move really well, they cannot think and reason through those kinds of challenging situations, and that's when it's significantly unsafe, because also at that time a lot of families are not recognizing that the person is at that point.
That is so important. That, because they are very good at fooling you. And like, when my mom lived with me, most people didn't even know she had Alzheimer's until it took a little while for them to go, "Hey, is your mom?" And I'd say, "Yes, she has Alzheimer's," because my mom could fake it real good, right? And so, especially if they're very social, and my mom had her tricks up her, she had the tricks of her trade, She would start singing to them if she didn't remember their name. Of course I remember you. You are so beautiful to me. So she would do those tricks. And people didn't know. People would think she was just charming. And so it takes time. So if you're out on the street and you're roaming, and people wouldn't even think, my mom was such a social butterfly. She'd be making friends along the way, and they wouldn't know that she was lost.
No, they wouldn't. Yeah. And she wouldn't ask them.
No.
I'll never forget, once I was working at a hospital system, and this is one of the, another one of my big buckets of contention is families who are not willing to accept the responsibility of taking the car keys away from someone.
Yeah.
If your scientific part of your anatomy, your gut tells you somebody's not, if you don't want to drive in a car with your mom shouldn't be driving.
Right.
If you don't want to drive in the car with your husband shouldn't be driving. If you don't want to put your grandchild in the car or the dog in the car with your family member, then they're not safe to drive, period. End of discussion. And families don't want to say that out loud for a variety of different reasons, and I understand all of them, because I had to take the car away. It's not a fun thing. But how this ties into the elopement is, there was a lady who was driving, and she would always only drive to the store. She's only going to church, whatever it is. Oh, mom's never she's only driving a few blocks, whatever the excuse is. Well, she took off, and she was found over 2 hours away from home. And the only reason she was found 2 hours away from home was because she ran out of gas and had enough, driving is so automatic, saw the gas light on and everything, and pulled into a gas station. And the gas station attendant recognized that she was confused and called the cops. And she was 2 hours away from home. Who's going to find her 2 hours away from home?
And she doesn't know where home is,
No.
Yeah. I just as somebody who, for both my parents, my brother and sister and I, had to take the keys away. And we were dreading it, and we kept putting it off and putting it. And I think the tack that we took that worked, and it actually was not as bad as it was just like, Mom or Dad, please do this for us. We can't sleep at night. We can't. I'm constant every time. If you get into a car, we're so nervous because we're worried that it's affecting us, and then the parental part of them comes out and says, "Okay, I'll do it for you." Not for myself, because I can still drive, but I'll do it for you. And it really did. Now, look, I'm sure there's that I may be simplifying it. But it was a tack that we took for both of them, and it did. It helped, and it worked.
Did they both have dementia, or just they were ready to stop driving?
They were cognitively they were having issues. They didn't really. On my dad's death certificate said he had Alzheimer's. He did not. His mind just slowly. And my mom, who's still very cognitive,
your mom doesn't have any
memories going good. She does not. But they were, and it may be easier when they don't, as opposed to when they're more combative and a little more in denial, or don't know there's something going on with them. But I just wanted to throw that out there. You can give that one a shot.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody should give it a shot. It's fascinating, though. I recently did an episode on my podcast about dementia and driving because it comes up a lot. It's something that, is very, very, can be very, very unsafe. And what was fascinating as I was researching it, people who have no cognitive impairment, older adults who have no cognitive impairment, will self-limit and take the car keys away from themselves because they recognize I can't see as well, or I can't hear, or I can't turn my head. They can reason through that. Somebody with dementia will not.
Right.
They do not see the deficits. That's what makes it so difficult to take those car keys away. I try, you try as much as possible to do it in the non-confrontational way. But if the person will not, and they're not safe anymore, it is our responsibility to take the next steps to work towards getting the car keys away through the physician and some other.
That's another. We also did have the doctor chime in and say,
it's just really hard when they do.
Yeah.
When they have Alzheimer's or dementia, it is very difficult because they forget and they forget and they forget. So, you could tell them all day long, but my mom was looking for her car always. Where's my car? Where's my car? And, it's very sad. And because it signifies their freedom, and it's there's a lot attached to that ability to drive. It just does. It signifies a lot, and it's like I'm saying, like when someone is going through Groundhog's Day and every day they wake up and go, where's my car keys? Where's my car keys? Which I put in my film, actually, because it was such a significant part of my mother's transition. It was like, where's my car keys all the time? Where's my car? Did you steal my car? That was a big theme, a very big theme. And so it can be really devastating. So it's,
sure. But it ties in with the elopement because we don't think about somebody eloping with their car.
No, right.
I have another example of somebody that I was aware of. Mom and daughter, the daughter had taken the car away from mom, but it was mom's car. Mm-hmm. And the daughter and mom went to the same doctor. So the primary care physician was both of their doctors. So mom came with the daughter to the doctor's office, and her daughter left her mom in the waiting area because she was going in to see the doctor, thinking that mom would be safe there, Mom forgot why they were there, forgot that the daughter was in seeing the doctor, dug through her purse, found another set of car keys, walked out, found her car, and drove home, and left her daughter at the doctor. So these situations truly, you cannot make this stuff up.
No.
Yeah. No. What about, we know facilities who are definitely understaffed are using chemical restraints to help to stop people from doing this, which we know is just horrendous. It's the worst, especially with people with dementia. It's just horrible. And people might, do you find that, or have you heard of doctors prescribing people who are at home, like, they'll prescribe something to kind of chemically tether them? And if so, if a doctor does that, what should you tell them?
I haven't run into that as much at home. It's definitely more in a facility, for sure. Usually, in my experience, when we get to that level of drug medication at home, there are significant behaviors involved, and it's more than exit seeking. It's aggression. It's those things that really make it difficult to provide care for somebody at home. Oftentimes it is that anger and that the person, the care partner, the caregiver is not feeling safe, or there's a lot of that physical like some people with dementia get extremely, extremely aggressive. And so that's when I tend to see those heavy duty medications at home. I'm not a proponent for medication to be the first line of defense, because I really do believe that looking at what's going on with the person and what's going on in the environment and seeing if they're bored or overstimulated, or what's going on with me, the care partner, because if I'm super stressed and I come in there, mom's going to be wild and woolly, right? Using other techniques first to see if we can mitigate or change the behavior that we're seeing. But sometimes the only thing that does help is medication. But it's not my first line of defense. But at home, typically the medications that are prescribed at home are Seroquel, which is a heavy-duty antipsychotic, which oftentimes you'll find in a facility. But they tend to be provided at a much lower dosage than in a facility. And I don't remember ever seeing somebody on Halidol at home, which is a chemical restraint, as much as being on Halidol in a facility. And I believe that if I have seen that, they were transitioning over to hospice. So there may be a reason for using some of those medications at end of life in order to be able to keep them at home. But I don't personally I haven't experienced as much of that type of medication and chemical restraint at home.
I mean, you bring up a good point, because we have to wrap up. I can't believe we've been talking so long. It's such a great conversation. But you bring up a good point about the medication at home, because my mom was a victim of Depakote, which is also an off-marketed drug to chemically restrain. And and for all those drugs, when you see them in a facility, they bring on somnolence, which is basically just everybody is zombies. When you see zombies, that's what you're looking at, because that's not a natural state of mind, is to be a zombie in a chair. And so but I didn't I didn't know that when I first was getting used to this kind of community. I had no idea that was what was going on. I just thought that was the nature of getting older, but it's not. It's not. And so I do think that there's dosages that you could do with something, if someone is agitated, and if they're agitated and you've tried everything, then maybe, there's something that will, it's like taking an antidepressant, right? So something that, but mild, because I don't think you need to it's either all or nothing, it feels like, in our industry, as opposed to, like one size fits all. And that doesn't make any sense. We're not one size fits all. So, either they're awake or they're out. But there's a reason that these drugs exist, and it wasn't for that. It wasn't to put people out. It was to help them get through a difficult time. So I think, what I'm trying to do is, mitigate the shame, because my mom was a victim of Depakote. She shouldn't have been on it. There was no reason for her to be on Depakote. It was just used because my mom was anything but, aggressive. She wasn't an aggressive person. Right. But until I didn't know, and that really changed the quality of her life, because she ended up being, immobile after that. Once I found out, she never regained her mobility. So, that's a tragic outcome. And she could have died, because they're black labeled drugs for people with Alzheimer's. So, but I also think, you shouldn't feel guilty if you are at home and you need some assistance because somebody's chemistry is, off balance because of what's going on cognitively. Certainly, you should look into that and find out what is the minimum you can use to help, and see if it helps. For sure. And try different kinds of drugs. Maybe Seroquel isn't good for your loved one. Maybe Ativan, I don't know, something, I used to get panic attacks, and I would get Ativan, and it would take it away like that, and I was back to normal. And so you never know what works. And I never overused it. It was just a safety for me. It was like if I got a panic attack, then it would help, So I think that there's just saying don't feel guilty if you have to, right?
Right. Yes. I think a measured approach, like I said, I'm not a proponent of medication as a first line of defense.
Me either.
Let's look for all of the other solutions first, and then if there's nothing else that's working, then let's start to explore some of the medication. Whereas the industry's standard is, let's medicate first.
And when they say medicate, they mean medicate with a capital M. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
John, I know what it makes me think of. Like when my mom was at the memory care, the place that it was all memory care, and we'd all go and visit my mom, and there'd be some of the residents who'd come by and just clop John in the head. Remember the woman that just, for some reason, she just gave you a smack at the back of your head every time? It was just like...
It's just,
He has that kind of head.
Yeah, I do. It's very hittable. It's very hittable.
She wanted his attention or something, and so every time she'd go clop.
It's actually kind of cute.
Yeah.
I said, will you please put her on medication right now? I can't
now.
have
But it was really, you're right. She did. That's exactly right, Lizette, is that she wanted Dawn's attention, is what it was.
That's how she communicated. Yeah.
And
that was how she communicated.
I had one gentleman that was always yelling at me, like from across the room. Young lady, young lady, young lady, young lady, like really, remember Dawn? And so I finally went over to him and I was like, because I was getting used to the community. I didn't have I wasn't a pro yet, right? So I finally went over to him and I said, what can I do for you? What can we do? How are you today? And he goes, I love you. I go, I love you too. Tell me about yourself. So he needed attention. But if you don't know that, you're going to think, wow, he's mean or he's nasty or he's, so loud, right?
Repetitive behaviors. Let's give him some medication.
Right.
He's annoying.
Let's calm him down so he's not an annoyance. Yeah. And usually that, again, comes back to understaffing, not enough people to deal with that.
So now Susie is Susie he's doing that to Susie, but when Susie's not there, he's saying that to the staff members all day, every day. Young lady, young lady, young lady. Right. And it's driving them nuts. And so they will give him medication instead of attention.
Right. Instead of just coming over and saying, what can I do for you? Taking literally 3 minutes to say, to pay attention. And because I think most of those people, the ones that are yelling, it's like, and it goes on and on and on.
It's so sad.
How many times did we hear it down the hall, somebody yelling and yelling and yelling the entire time we were there, because nobody went in and said, yes, may I help you?
Hi, hello. I love your dress. I love your hair. I mean, I learned to do that, right? I learned to do that. I love what you're wearing today. Really? Yes, I do. Oh.
It's beautiful. You look lovely.
You look beautiful. And they're like, oh, thank you. Who doesn't like to be complimented? And so I do, so I just try to, be a human being. That's all. Just try to be human.
Meet the person where they are.
Right.
Yep.
And look for the emotional connection.
Lean in.
Totally.
Because the rational goes and the emotional stays.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally. Well, this was so lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your.
It's fun.
Well, you're fun. You're strong, but soft at the same time. That's what I love about you, because you have a nice heart. You have a very good heart, and we need more of you in the industry.
Well, for sure. Coming from South Africa, we definitely can have some bluster, but soft, squishy on the inside.
Totally.
Softies at heart.
And I knew that about you. I know that. I knew that from the second I met you. It was like, I really like you. So thank you so much. And we will have all of Lizette's information on the show notes, and go and listen to her podcast, which is totally different because it comes from a different perspective, because she's in there, she's in the trenches with a lot more people than I have ever been. So please do tell us what the name of your podcast is again and where we can find it.
So the original name was Dementia Caregiving for Families, and then recently I changed it to Christian Dementia Caregiving.
Okay.
Mostly because I answer my questions from a Christian perspective. I blend the evidence-based practices from a biblical lens. So people can still come and listen to. Not all of them are entirely, from a Christian perspective. I just started a whole series on 5 quick tips for different challenging behaviors. But it is good information. And really, honestly, one of the biggest things that I've noticed that makes a successful caregiver versus an unsuccessful caregiver is what we think about it, is what we think about our own journey, what we think about dementia in particular. And so I really work with people a lot on how you think about dementia. What do you believe it to be? Because as long as we continue this tragedy narrative that it is all doom and gloom and woe is me, then that is the result that we get. And so I really work with people very hard on what is it that you're thinking about your dementia caregiving journey. Because what you're thinking about it will be the result that you get.
Totally.
You manifest it.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring it all home, John, because what do we,
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
what
it just feels that everything in the long run, it's a combination of faith and science, and then in the long run, it's love. It's love. It all has to be based in love, and there is only one reason for that, and that is because love is powerful. Love is contagious, and love conquers all. So we thank everyone for watching, listening today. If you like what you saw or heard, please share and follow and do all those good things. And we'll be seeing you next time.
Yes, and check out nocountryforoldpeople.com and see how you can help us with this project and with the movement that we're doing. And we really appreciate it. And love you. Talk to you soon.
See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.